The clock showed 11:45 p.m. when Marcus Chen pulled into the parking lot of Thornhill Concert Hall. He was 15 minutes early, like he always was. Marcus believed in being on time. It was one of the few things he could control in his life these days. He sat in his old Honda Civic for a moment, finishing the last of his coffee. It was cold now, but he drank it anyway. Coffee was expensive, and he couldn't waste it. Through the windshield, he could see the tall glass doors of the concert hall. The building was beautiful even at night. Maybe especially at night when the lights inside made it glow like a jewel. Marcus was 42 years old, but some days he felt much older. His uniform was clean and pressed. He always made sure of that. The dark blue shirt with the word security on the back. The black pants with the sharp crease down the front. His black shoes were polished until they shined. Looking professional mattered to him, even if nobody really noticed. He grabbed his lunch bag from the passenger seat and got out of the car. The November air was cold and bit at his face. Winter was coming early this year. Marcus zipped up his jacket and walked toward the building. His footsteps echoed in the quiet parking lot. Inside, the warmth hit him immediately. The lobby of Thornhill Concert Hall was grand. The floor was made of white marble that gleamed under the chandeliers. Tall columns rose up to the high ceiling. On the walls hung photographs of famous musicians who had performed here. Violinists, opera singers, conductors, and pianists. So many pianists. Marcus tried not to look at those photographs too much. They reminded him of things he didn't want to remember. Evening, Marcus called out Joe, the day shift security guard. Joe was 60 years old and had been working at the concert hall for 20 years. He was a good man, always friendly. Evening, Joe, Marcus replied with a small smile. How was your day? Quiet, just how I like it, Joe said, gathering his things. There was a school tour this morning. Bunch of kids running around. But no trouble. The evening concert ended about an hour ago. Everyone's gone now. Just you in the building. Any problems I should know about? Nope. Back door in the loading area was sticking again. Maintenance said they'll look at it Monday. Other than that, everything's good. Joe picked up his coat and lunchbox. Stay warm tonight. Temperature's supposed to drop. I will. Drive safe, Joe. You too, Marcus. See you tomorrow. Joe left through the front doors and Marcus was alone. He liked this moment, the quiet moment before he officially started his shift. He walked to the security office, a small room near the lobby with monitors showing different camera views of the building. Marcus clocked in at exactly midnight. Then he sat down and looked at the monitors. 8 screens showed different areas. The lobby, the main hallway, the backstage area, the loading dock, 2 views of the parking lot and 2 views of the main auditorium. Everything looked normal. Everything looked empty. He pulled out his thermos and poured himself some hot tea. His ex-wife Sarah used to make fun of him for drinking tea. She said real men drank coffee. But Marcus liked tea. It was gentle and warm, and it reminded him of his grandmother. His grandmother had been the one who first put him in front of a piano. He was 5 years old. She said his fingers were meant for making music. For 14 years after that, the piano had been his whole world. Lessons every day after school. Competitions on weekends. Scholarships and awards and newspaper articles calling him a prodigy. Marcus shook his head. He didn't like to think about those days. That was a different life, a different person. He stood up and began his first round of the building. This was his routine. Every hour he would walk through the entire concert hall. He would check every door, every window, every lock. He would make sure nothing was wrong. His footsteps were the only sound in the building. The marble floors made his shoes click with each step. Click, 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 a steady rhythm. He walked down the main hallway. On both sides were doors leading to smaller practice rooms and offices. He checked each one. All locked. All secure. Marcus passed the photographs on the walls again. He saw a young Asian man in one photo, maybe 25 years old, sitting at a piano. The man was smiling at the camera. The caption said he had performed here 15 years ago. Marcus wondered where that musician was now. If he was still playing. If he was happy. He continued walking until he reached the main auditorium. This was the heart of the building. Marcus pushed open the heavy door and stepped inside. The auditorium was massive. Rows and rows of red velvet seats faced the stage. The ceiling was painted with angels and clouds like an old European palace. Even empty, the room felt important, like it was waiting for something beautiful to happen. And there, in the center of the stage, under a single spotlight that was always left on, sat the piano. It was a Steinway Model D grand piano, 9 feet long, made of ebony wood so black it looked almost blue under the lights. It cost more than Marcus would make in 5 years, maybe 10 years. Marcus stood in the aisle between the seats and stared at it. He did this every night. It was part of his routine, though he never wrote it in his security log. He would stand here for exactly 3 minutes and just look at the piano. His fingers would start to itch. That's how he thought of it. An itch in his fingers, like they wanted to remember something they had forgotten. He had not played a piano in 15 years. Not since everything had fallen apart. Not since his full scholarship to music school had disappeared. Not since his girlfriend had gotten pregnant and they had to get married. Not since he had to drop out and get a regular job to pay the bills. Not since his dreams had died. Sarah had left him 3 years ago. She said he was too quiet, too distant, too sad. She was probably right. She had taken their daughter Lily with her, and now Marcus saw his daughter every other weekend. Lily was 12 years old now. She had Sarah's eyes and Marcus's smile. He paid child support every month. He paid it first, before rent, before food, before anything else. Lily deserved better than what he could give her, but he gave what he could. The piano waited on the stage, patient and silent. Marcus remembered his first day working here. 3 years ago, he had been so nervous. He needed the job desperately. His supervisor, Raymond Hartley, had given him a tour of the building. Hartley was a short man with a big voice. He was the kind of person who liked to be in charge, who liked people to know he was in charge. When they had reached the main auditorium, Hartley had stopped and pointed at the piano. "See that?" Hartley had said. "That's a $500,000 instrument. You know what your job is?" "To protect it, sir," Marcus had answered. "That's right. To protect it. Not to touch it. Not to breathe on it. Not to even think about touching it." Hartley had laughed at his own joke. "I mean it, Chen. Security staff are forbidden from touching any of the musical equipment, especially that piano." "I understand, sir." "Good, because if I ever catch you playing that piano—" Hartley had paused for effect, grinning. "If he plays the piano, I'll fire him." "You hear that, Johnson?" He called to another guard who was nearby. "If Chen here plays the piano, he's gone." The other guard had laughed. Marcus had just nodded. He didn't tell them that he knew how to play. He didn't tell them anything. That conversation happened 3 years ago, and Hartley still made the same joke. At least once a month he would say it. "Don't even think about touching that piano, Chen, or you're fired." And he would laugh like it was the funniest thing in the world. Marcus never responded. He just did his job. Now, standing in the empty auditorium, Marcus checked his watch. 3 minutes had passed. Time to keep moving. He turned away from the stage and continued his rounds. He checked the backstage area, the dressing rooms, the storage rooms. Everything was secure. Everything was quiet. Back in the security office, he made notes in his log. 12:47 a.m., first round complete. All secure. The night stretched ahead of him. 8 more hours until sunrise. 8 more hours of walking empty hallways and checking locked doors. 8 more hours of being alone with his thoughts. Marcus poured another cup of tea and watched the monitors. On one screen, he could see the stage and the piano, sitting silent under its spotlight. His fingers itched. Every night was the same, and yet every night was different. Marcus walked the same hallways, checked the same doors, looked at the same piano. But each night the pull got a little stronger. The itch in his fingers got a little harder to ignore. It was a Tuesday night, 3 weeks after Marcus had started thinking more and more about the piano. He was doing his 2 a.m. round when he stopped in the auditorium again. This wasn't part of his official routine. He wasn't supposed to stop here except during his hourly checks, but lately he found himself coming here more often. The piano sat there like it was waiting for him. The spotlight made it glow. Marcus walked down the aisle between the seats, getting closer than he usually did. He walked all the way to the front row and sat down in one of the red velvet seats. From here he could see the piano better. He could see the keys, black and white, perfect and clean. He could see his reflection in the polished wood. He looked tired. He looked old. Marcus closed his eyes and remembered. He remembered being 17 years old and playing in the state finals. He remembered the weight of the gold medal around his neck. He remembered his grandmother crying happy tears in the audience. He remembered thinking that his whole life was ahead of him, bright and full of music. He remembered being 19 and getting the letter about the full scholarship to the New England Conservatory. His ticket out. His chance to become everything he was meant to be. He remembered Sarah telling him she was pregnant. The fear in her eyes. The way his whole future had shifted in that one moment. He remembered his grandmother's funeral. How he couldn't play at the service because his hands were shaking too much. How he had sold his piano 3 months later to help pay for the baby's medical bills. Marcus opened his eyes. The piano was still there, real and solid and beautiful. He shouldn't want it this much. It had been 15 years. He should have moved on. He should have accepted that some dreams die and that's just life. But sitting here in the dark, in the empty concert hall, he felt like something inside him was dying a little more each night. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Marcus pulled it out and saw a text from Sarah. Even though they were divorced, she still contacted him about Lily. Lily has a cavity. Dentist says it might need a root canal. We'll know more next week. Marcus felt his stomach drop. A root canal. That meant money. A lot of money. His insurance barely covered basic cleanings. A root canal could cost thousands of dollars. Money he didn't have. He texted back, "Okay, let me know. I'll figure something out." He always figured something out. He picked up extra shifts when he could. He bought store-brand food. He hadn't bought new clothes in 2 years. His car was 20 years old and held together with prayer and duct tape. But he always made sure Lily had what she needed. Marcus stood up from the seat and walked closer to the stage. He climbed the steps at the side and stood on the stage itself. This was against the rules, too. He wasn't supposed to be on the stage unless there was an emergency. But there was nobody here to see. The cameras in the auditorium were pointed at the seats and the doors, not at the stage. That was on purpose. Musicians didn't want to be recorded during their private practice time. Marcus walked across the wooden stage floor. Each step felt important. He could feel the history of this place. How many people had stood right here? Hundreds? Thousands? Great musicians from around the world had performed on this stage. He stopped 3 feet from the piano bench. His heart was beating fast. This was as close as he ever let himself get. The piano was even more beautiful up close. He could see the grain of the wood. He could see the tiny reflection of the spotlight in the polished surface. The keys looked soft, like they would feel good under his fingers. Marcus put his hands behind his back. He knew if he didn't, he might reach out and touch it. And if he touched it, he might not be able to stop. And if he couldn't stop, he would lose his job. And he needed his job, especially now with Lily needing expensive dental work. He stood there for a long time, just looking. Then he turned around and walked off the stage. He climbed down the steps and walked back up the aisle. At the door, he stopped and looked back one more time. The piano waited under its spotlight, patient and perfect. Marcus finished his round and went back to the security office. He wrote in his log, 2:15 a.m., second round complete. All secure. He didn't write about standing on the stage. He didn't write about the ache in his chest. The rest of the night passed slowly. At 4 a.m., he ate his sandwich. Turkey and cheese on wheat bread. No mayo, because mayo cost extra. He ate an apple and drank more tea. At 6 a.m., he did his final round before the day shift came in. The sun was starting to rise outside. Through the windows, he could see the sky turning from black to dark blue to gray. He stopped at the auditorium one last time. In the early morning light, the piano looked different. Less magical, maybe. More real, just an instrument. Just wood and strings and hammers. But to Marcus, it was more than that. It was everything he had lost. Everything he had given up. Joe arrived at 7:45 a.m. They talked for a few minutes about the day ahead. There was a big concert tonight. Some famous violinist from Germany. The place would be busy. "You look tired, Marcus," Joe said with concern in his voice. "You sleeping okay?" "I'm fine," Marcus lied. "Just thinking about bills. You know how it is." "I do," Joe nodded. "I really do. Hang in there, buddy." Marcus clocked out and walked to his car. The parking lot was starting to fill up with cars from the administrative staff. People in suits and nice clothes were going to their office jobs. They looked fresh and awake. Marcus felt like a ghost. He drove home to his small apartment. It was a studio apartment in an old building. One room that was his bedroom, living room, and kitchen all together. A tiny bathroom with a shower that barely worked. But it was cheap and it was his. Marcus took off his uniform and hung it up carefully. He would need it again tonight. He lay down on his bed without taking a shower. He was too tired. But he couldn't sleep. His mind kept going back to the piano, to the feel of keys under his fingers, to the sound of music filling a room, to the person he used to be. He picked up his phone and searched used pianos for sale. The cheapest one was $800. He had $200 in his bank account. After he paid this month's child support and rent, he would have $30 left. Marcus put his phone down and stared at the ceiling. There was a water stain up there in the shape of a cloud. He had been looking at that stain for 3 years. His phone rang. It was Sarah. Hello? Marcus, I talked to the dentist again. Sarah's voice was tight with worry. It's worse than they thought. Lily needs emergency surgery. The cavity is infected. If we don't do it soon, she could lose the tooth. She's in pain, Marcus. How much? Marcus asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. $3,000. Insurance won't cover it because she went to a dentist outside our network. It was an emergency. I didn't have time to check. They want the payment up front before they'll do the surgery. $3,000. Marcus felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. $3,000. He didn't have $300. Where was he supposed to get $3,000? When does she need it? He asked. By Friday. They scheduled her for Friday morning. Marcus, I'm sorry. I know you don't have it. My boyfriend said he might be able to help, but no, Marcus said quickly. He didn't want Sarah's new boyfriend paying for his daughter's medical care. That was his job. He was Lily's father. I'll get it. Tell them I'll get it. Marcus, where are you going to get $3,000 in 3 days? I don't know, he admitted. But I will. I promise. Tell Lily I love her and everything will be okay. After he hung up, Marcus sat on his bed with his head in his hands. $3,000. He could try to borrow it, but who would lend him money? His credit was bad. He had no family except a sister who lived across the country and had her own problems. His friends from his music days were all gone, moved on to their successful lives while he had stayed behind. He could ask his boss for an advance on his paycheck, but that would only be a few $100s. Not nearly enough. Marcus lay back on his bed. He felt defeated. He felt like a failure. What kind of father couldn't even pay for his daughter's medical emergency? He closed his eyes and for a moment he imagined he was at a piano. He imagined his fingers moving across the keys. He imagined making something beautiful. For just a moment he let himself escape into that fantasy. But when he opened his eyes, he was still in his tiny apartment with its water-stained ceiling. He was still a 42-year-old security guard who couldn't afford to help his daughter. The piano was just a dream from long ago, or was it? A thought started to form in Marcus's mind. A dangerous thought. A thought that scared him. But once it started, he couldn't make it stop. Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in his bed staring at the ceiling until the afternoon sun made the water stain look orange. His mind kept going in circles. $3,000. $3,000. Where could he get $3,000? He thought about selling his car, but it was barely worth $500. He thought about selling his TV, his phone, everything he owned. But it still wouldn't be enough. Nothing he had was worth anything to anyone else. At 4 p.m., he got up and made himself eat something. Instant ramen noodles. He sat at his small table and stirred the noodles without really seeing them. His stomach was tight with worry. His phone buzzed. A text from Lily herself. She didn't text him often. She was at that age where parents weren't cool anymore. Dad, my tooth really hurts. Mom says you're going to help with the dentist. Thank you. I love you. Marcus felt tears come to his eyes. He couldn't remember the last time Lily had said she loved him. She was growing up so fast. Soon she would be a teenager, then an adult. He was missing so much of her life already. He couldn't let her down. Not with this. Not when she was in pain. He texted back, I love you too, sweetheart. Everything will be okay, I promise. But how could he keep that promise? Marcus got ready for work in a daze. He put on his uniform, made his coffee, grabbed his lunch bag. Everything automatic. His body knew the routine even when his mind was somewhere else. The drive to work felt longer than usual. Marcus kept thinking. There had to be a way. There had to be something he could do. When he got to Thornhill Concert Hall, the parking lot was full. Tonight's concert was sold out. The famous German violinist was performing. People in expensive clothes were walking toward the entrance. Women in long dresses and jewelry. Men in suits and ties. They were laughing and talking, excited for the show. Marcus parked in the employee lot in the back. He sat in his car for a minute watching these people. They probably spent more on their dinner before the concert than Marcus made in a week. They lived in a different world. A world where $3,000 wasn't the end of everything. Inside the building, it was busy. Staff members were rushing around. Joe was still there, working late because of the big event. "Hey, Marcus," Joe said. "It's crazy tonight. Full house. The concert started 20 minutes ago. Should be done around 10:30. Then cleanup crew comes, and after that, it's all yours." "Thanks, Joe. You look rough, buddy. Everything okay?" Marcus almost told him. Almost explained about Lily and the money and the fear that was eating him alive. But what could Joe do? Joe was working as a security guard, too. He didn't have $3,000 to spare. "Just tired," Marcus said. "I'll be fine." Joe patted him on the shoulder. "Get some coffee in you. It's going to be a long night." Marcus clocked in and went to the security office. On the monitors, he could see the lobby still had a few people. Latecomers trying to sneak in. The main auditorium camera showed the doors were closed. The concert had started. He sat down and put his head in his hands. He felt like he was drowning, like there was no way out, no solution, no hope. Time passed slowly. At 10:45 p.m., the concert ended. On the monitors, Marcus watched people flood out of the auditorium. They were smiling and clapping. The concert must have been good. They got to enjoy beautiful music while Marcus sat alone in a small room dying inside. By 11:30 p.m., everyone was gone. The cleaning crew had come through and left. Now it was just Marcus in the building, like always, like every night. But tonight was different. Tonight, Marcus felt different. Something had broken inside him. Some wall that had been holding everything back. 15 years of holding back. 15 years of being practical and responsible, and doing what he had to do instead of what he wanted to do. And where had it gotten him? His daughter was in pain and he couldn't help her. He worked every night, never complained, followed all the rules. And it still wasn't enough. It was never enough. At midnight, Marcus started his first round. But instead of checking doors and windows, he walked straight to the main auditorium. He pushed open the doors and stepped inside. The room was empty now. The seats were all vacant. The stage was dark except for that one spotlight on the piano. It was always there, always waiting. Marcus walked down the aisle. His footsteps echoed in the huge room. Echo, 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 like the room was calling him forward. He climbed the steps to the stage. His heart was pounding. He knew what he was about to do was wrong. He knew it was against the rules. He knew he could lose his job. But in that moment, he didn't care. He was so tired of following rules. So tired of sacrificing everything. So tired of being the person who gave up his dreams for everyone else. Just once, he thought. Just once I want to remember who I used to be. Just once I want to feel alive again before I disappear completely. Marcus walked across the stage to the piano. Up close, it was even more beautiful than he remembered. The wood was perfect. Not a scratch on it. The keys were clean and white. They practically glowed under the spotlight. He looked around the auditorium. Empty. He looked up at the cameras. The angles were wrong. They couldn't see the stage clearly. Nobody would know. Nobody would see. His hands were shaking as he sat down on the bench. It was the perfect height. Someone had adjusted it recently for the professional musicians who used it. Marcus looked at the keys. 88 keys. Black and white. Everything in the world could be made from these 88 keys. Every emotion. Every story. Every feeling that words couldn't express. His hands moved forward slowly. He half expected an alarm to go off. Security to come running. But nothing happened. There was only silence. His fingers touched the keys. They were cool and smooth under his skin. Perfect. For 15 years, Marcus had not touched a piano. 15 years of walking past them in stores and restaurants in the homes of people who had them just for decoration. 15 years of acting like it didn't matter. Like he didn't miss it every single day. He took a breath. His fingers found their position like they had never left. Muscle memory is a strange thing. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Marcus pressed down on the keys. The first note rang out in the empty auditorium, clear and pure and perfect. The sound filled the huge room. It echoed off the walls and the high ceiling with the painted angels. One note, then another. Then another. His fingers started to move. He began with Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. He had played it 100 times when he was young. It was the first piece he had ever performed in a real concert. He was 10 years old. His grandmother was in the audience, so proud she cried. At first, his fingers were stiff. 15 years without practice. But slowly, they remembered. The notes started to flow. The music started to come alive. Marcus closed his eyes. He wasn't in the concert hall anymore. He was 17 again, playing in the state finals. He was 19, playing his acceptance audition for the conservatory. He was 5 years old, sitting next to his grandmother, learning his first song. The music poured out of him, all the pain he had been holding inside, all the grief for his lost dreams, all the love for his daughter that he couldn't express in words, all the years of being quiet and invisible and tired. His fingers moved faster. The Chopin piece ended and he moved into Rachmaninoff. Piano Concerto No. 2, one of the most difficult pieces ever written. He had learned it when he was 18. He played only the piano part, but in his mind he could hear the full orchestra. The music was angry now, powerful. His hands flew across the keys. He wasn't a security guard anymore. He wasn't a divorced father struggling to pay bills. He wasn't a 42-year-old man with gray in his hair and worry lines on his face. He was a musician, a pianist, an artist. He was Marcus Chen, the prodigy, the boy who won competitions, the young man with a future full of promise. He was himself, his real self, the self he had buried so deep he thought it was gone forever. The Rachmaninoff ended with a crash of notes that echoed through the auditorium. Marcus paused, breathing hard. His heart was racing. His hands were shaking, but they were shaking from emotion, not fear. He opened his eyes and looked at the keys. They were exactly the same as when he started. But he was different. He felt like he had been asleep for 15 years and had finally woken up. He started to play again. This time he didn't play any famous pieces. He improvised. He let his fingers go where they wanted. He made up melodies from his own heart. Music that had never been played before. Music that was only his. He played about his grandmother and how she had believed in him. He played about Sarah and how they had loved each other once before life got hard. He played about Lily and how much he loved her and how scared he was that he was failing her. He played about his tiny apartment and his old car and his lonely nights walking empty hallways. He played about dreams that die, about promises that can't be kept, about men who work hard their whole lives and still end up with nothing, about being invisible in a world that only sees the successful and the rich and the lucky. The music filled the auditorium. It reached into every corner. It touched the ceiling with the painted angels. It wrapped around the empty seats. It was the most honest thing Marcus had done in 15 years. He didn't know how long he played. Time disappeared. There was only the music. Only the piano. Marcus didn't go back to the security office right away. He couldn't. His hands were still shaking. His heart was still pounding. He felt like he had just run a marathon or climbed a mountain. His body was tired, but his mind was more awake than it had been in years. He sat in the front row of the auditorium, in the same red velvet seat where he had sat earlier that night. The piano was still there on the stage under its spotlight. It looked the same as always, but everything felt different now. Marcus looked at his hands. They were the hands of a 42-year-old man, rough from years of work, calluses from opening doors and checking locks. But for a few minutes they had been young again. They had remembered everything. He thought about his grandmother. She had died 8 years ago. She never got to see him play professionally. She never got to see him make it to the conservatory. He had disappointed her. He had wasted the gift she had helped him develop. But tonight, just for a moment, he felt like she was there with him. He felt like she was smiling, like she was saying, "That's my boy. That's my Marcus." A sound made him turn around. Someone was standing at the back of the auditorium near the doors. Marcus's heart jumped into his throat. Had someone seen him? Was he caught? He stood up quickly. "Hello?" he called out. His voice echoed in the big room. A woman stepped forward into the light. It was Maria, one of the cleaning crew. She was about 50 years old, a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She cleaned the concert hall 3 nights a week. "Maria," Marcus said, his voice shaky. "I didn't know anyone was still here. I thought everyone had left." Maria walked down the aisle toward him. There were tears on her face. She was crying. "Marcus," she said softly, "I forgot my phone in the women's bathroom. I came back to get it. I heard the music. I heard you playing." Marcus felt like his world was ending. She had heard. She had caught him. Now he would lose his job for sure. And without his job, how would he help Lily? How would he pay his rent? How would he survive? Maria, I'm sorry, he started to say. I know I wasn't supposed to touch the piano. I know it's against the rules. Please don't tell anyone. I need this job. My daughter needs— Marcus, Maria interrupted him. She reached out and put her hand on his arm. How long have you been able to play like that? He didn't understand the question. What? How long? She repeated. Have you always known how to play? Marcus nodded slowly. Since I was 5. But I haven't played in 15 years. Not until tonight. Maria wiped her eyes. I've worked here for 10 years, she said. I've heard hundreds of concerts. The best musicians in the world come here. Famous pianists, people who have played for presidents and queens. I've heard them all. She paused and looked at him with those kind eyes. I have never, she said, never heard anything as beautiful as what you just played. Marcus stared at her. He didn't know what to say. He felt like maybe he was dreaming. Maybe he had fallen asleep at his desk and this was all in his head. I'm serious, Maria continued. The way you played? It was like you were telling a story, like the piano was speaking. I couldn't help it. I started recording on my phone. I hope you don't mind. I only got the last 10 minutes. You recorded me? Marcus felt panic rise in his chest again. Maria, you can't show anyone. I could lose my job. My boss said, what did your boss say? Maria asked. Marcus hesitated. Then he said quietly, he said if I ever played the piano, I would be fired. Maria frowned. That man, she said with disgust in her voice. Raymond Hartley. He's mean. Everyone knows it. He treats people like they're beneath him, especially people like us, the security guards and cleaning crew, the people who keep this place running. He's still my boss, Marcus said, and I need this job. Maria looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, do you know what I think, Marcus? I think the world needs to hear you play. I think you have a gift, a real gift, and you've been hiding it. I'm not hiding it, Marcus said. I gave it up. There's a difference. I have responsibilities. I have a daughter to take care of. Playing piano is a dream from a long time ago. Dreams don't die, Maria said. They just wait. I can see it on your face. You're alive right now in a way you weren't when you walked in tonight. This is who you really are. Marcus shook his head. It doesn't matter who I really am. What matters is paying bills and taking care of my daughter. That's reality. Maybe, Maria said. But I'm going to keep this video. Just for me, so I can watch it sometimes and remember that beauty exists in unexpected places. Is that okay? Marcus didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to make her delete it. But another part of him, a part he didn't want to admit existed, wanted that video to exist. Wanted proof that tonight had really happened. That for a few minutes he had been himself again. Okay, he finally said. But please don't show anyone. Promise me. Maria smiled. I promise, she said. But there was something in her eyes that Marcus couldn't read. Something that maybe should have worried him. But he was too tired to think about it anymore. I should get back to work, he said. I need to finish my rounds, Maria nodded. Good night, Marcus. Thank you for the music. It was the most beautiful thing I've heard in a very long time. She walked back up the aisle and left through the doors. Marcus stood there alone again. The auditorium was silent. The piano waited on the stage. He turned away and went back to the security office. The monitors showed empty hallways. Everything was quiet. Everything was normal. Like nothing had happened. But something had happened. Marcus could feel it. He had crossed a line tonight. He had broken a rule. He had taken a risk. And even though he was scared of the consequences, he couldn't make himself regret it. He looked at the clock. It was 1:15 a.m. He still had almost 6 more hours until his shift ended. He needed to focus. He needed to do his job. But his hands still tingled from playing. The music still echoed in his head. He could still feel the keys under his fingers. Marcus did his rounds for the rest of the night. He checked doors and windows. He walked hallways. He wrote in his log. Everything normal. Everything routine. But inside he was different. Something had changed. A door had opened that he thought was locked forever. And now he didn't know if he could close it again. He wasn't sure he wanted to. At 7:45 a.m., Joe arrived for the day shift. He looked at Marcus with concern. "You look exhausted, buddy. Rough night?" Marcus thought about the piano, the music, the feeling of being alive. "Yeah," he said. "Rough night." "Go home and sleep," Joe said. "You've earned it." Marcus drove home as the sun came up. The city was waking up. People were going to work, starting their days, living their lives. The world kept turning like it always did. In his apartment, Marcus lay down on his bed. He was exhausted, but he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the piano, about the music, about the way it felt. He picked up his phone. He thought about texting Sarah to ask about Lily, but it was too early. They would still be asleep. Instead, he found himself searching the internet for piano music. He watched videos of famous pianists. He listened to recordings. He read articles about competitions and concerts. It was like picking at a wound. It hurt, but he couldn't stop. He had opened this door in his heart, and now everything he had buried was coming back to the surface. Finally, around noon, exhaustion won. Marcus fell asleep with his phone still in his hand. He dreamed about music. He dreamed about playing for a huge audience. He dreamed about his grandmother smiling in the front row. He dreamed about being someone who mattered. When he woke up, it was 3 p.m. His phone was buzzing. He had 17 missed calls and 38 text messages. His heart started racing. What had happened? Was Lily okay? Was there an emergency? He looked at the messages. They were from numbers he didn't recognize. Text after text from strangers. "Are you the security guard who plays piano? Did you really play that music? Where can I hear you perform? This is amazing. You're so talented." Marcus sat up in bed, confused and scared. What was happening? How did strangers have his phone number? How did they know about the piano? He opened his social media app that he barely ever used. He had 3,000 notifications. 3,000. He clicked on them, and there it was. The video. Maria's video of him playing the piano. She had posted it. She had broken her promise. The video was everywhere. It had been shared thousands of times. People were watching it, commenting on it, reposting it. The caption said, "The security guard at my work plays better than the people who perform here. This man is a hidden genius." Marcus felt like he couldn't breathe. The video showed him clearly. His face, his uniform, his badge with his name on it. Everyone could see it was him. His phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. He answered it without thinking. "Hello? Is this Marcus Chen?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Jennifer Park. I'm a reporter with Channel 7 News. I'd like to interview you about your piano playing. The video has gone viral. Everyone wants to know your story." I can't," Marcus said. "I have to go." He hung up. His phone immediately rang again. Another reporter. He didn't answer. More text messages came in. More notifications. The numbers kept growing. 10,000 views. 50,000. 100,000. And then Marcus saw the email. The one that made his blood run cold. It was from Raymond Hartley, his supervisor. Marcus sat on his bed staring at his phone. The numbers kept climbing. 200,000 views. 300,000. 500,000. It was like watching a wildfire spread, and he was standing in the middle of it. He clicked on the video and watched himself. There he was, sitting at that piano in his security guard uniform. The spotlight made him look small and alone on that big stage. His fingers moved across the keys. The sound quality from Maria's phone wasn't perfect, but the music was clear. It was beautiful. Marcus barely recognized himself. The man in the video looked lost in the music. He looked free. He looked like someone who belonged at that piano. Not like a scared, tired security guard who could barely pay his bills. The comments under the video made Marcus's eyes sting with tears. "This is the most beautiful piano playing I've ever heard. Why is this man working as a security guard? He should be famous. I'm crying. This touched my soul. Someone please help this man. He deserves better. Talent like this can't be hidden forever." There were thousands of comments, tens of thousands. People from all over the world were watching him, listening to his music, feeling something from what he had played. It was overwhelming. It was terrifying. It was everything he had ever dreamed of and everything he had feared. His phone rang again. Another unknown number. He didn't answer. He couldn't talk to anyone right now. He couldn't think straight. Another text from Sarah. Marcus, what is happening? My phone won't stop ringing. Reporters are calling me asking about you. They found our divorce records online. They want to know about your past. What did you do? Marcus typed back with shaking hands. I played a piano at work. Someone recorded it. I didn't know she would post it online. I'm sorry. Is Lily okay? She's fine. She's actually excited. She saw the video. She thinks her dad is famous now. Marcus, what's going to happen? I don't know. I think I'm going to get fired. Oh no. Marcus, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. How's her tooth? Still hurting. Appointment is still Friday. Marcus, forget about the money for now. You need to deal with this situation first. But Marcus couldn't forget about the money. Even if he lost his job, even if his life was falling apart, Lily still needed that surgery. She was still in pain. That was still his responsibility. He looked at the video again. It now had 700,000 views. Someone had shared it on Twitter. Someone else had posted it on Facebook. It was spreading everywhere. A new email came in. This one wasn't from Hartley. It was from someone named David Kowalski with a subject line that said, Recording Contract Inquiry. Marcus opened it with trembling hands. Dear Mr. Chen, my name is David Kowalski and I'm an A&R representative for Symphony Records. I just watched your video and I'm blown away by your talent. We would love to discuss the possibility of working with you. Please call me at your earliest convenience. Best regards, David Kowalski. There was a phone number at the bottom. Marcus read the email 3 times. A recording contract? A record label wanted to talk to him? This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like him. They happened in movies, not in real life. Another email came in. This one was from a talent agency in New York. They wanted to represent him. They wanted to book him for concerts. They said he could be the next big thing in classical music. Marcus felt dizzy. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. More emails. More calls. More text messages. Everyone wanted to talk to him. Everyone wanted a piece of him. A text came from a number that identified itself as Channel 7 News again. Mr. Chen, your story is inspiring millions of people. Please let us tell it properly. We can meet wherever you're comfortable. This could change your life. His phone rang. This time it was a number he recognized. It was Joe from work. Joe, Marcus answered. Marcus, buddy. What's going on? I just got to work and everyone's talking about a video. They're saying you played the piano last night. They're saying you're some kind of genius. Is it true? Yeah, Marcus said quietly. It's true. I played it. I'm sorry, Joe. I know I shouldn't have. I needed to. I can't explain it. Sorry. Marcus, have you seen what's happening online? You have millions of people watching you. I just saw the video. Man, I had no idea. I've been working next to you for 3 years and I didn't know you could play like that. Nobody knew, Marcus said. I didn't tell anyone. Why not? Why would you keep something like that secret? Because it doesn't matter, Marcus said and his voice cracked. It's just a dream from a long time ago. It doesn't pay bills. It doesn't help my daughter. It's just music. Marcus, Joe said gently, I think you're wrong. I think this matters a lot. And I think your life is about to change. I think I'm about to get fired, Marcus said. Hartley sent me an email. He wants to see me before I clock in. Yeah, about that, Joe said. Hartley is here right now. So is Victoria Sterling. She's the general manager. The big boss. She never comes in this late. Something's happening. They're in the office waiting for you. Marcus felt sick. Victoria Sterling. He had seen her maybe 3 times in 3 years. She was always in meetings with important people, planning events, talking to wealthy donors. She had never spoken to him directly, not once. They're going to fire me, Marcus said. Maybe, Joe said. But maybe not. Just come in, face it. Whatever happens, you can't hide from it now. The whole world is watching. Marcus hung up. He sat there for a few more minutes trying to gather his courage. He looked around his tiny apartment. Everything he owned could fit in his car. If he lost his job, he would lose this place too. He would have nothing. But he thought about that piano. About those 23 minutes when he had been truly alive. Was it worth it? Was that moment worth losing everything? He didn't know. He honestly didn't know. Marcus got dressed in his uniform. He combed his hair. He looked at himself in the mirror. He looked the same as always, just a tired man in a security guard uniform. But the world saw him differently now. Millions of people had watched him play. They thought he was talented. They thought he was special. The drive to work was strange. Marcus kept expecting something to feel different. But the streets looked the same. The traffic lights were red and green like always. The world kept turning. When he pulled into the parking lot of Thornhill Concert Hall, he saw news vans, 3 of them with satellite dishes on top. Reporters and camera crews were standing near the entrance. Marcus parked in his usual spot in the employee lot. He sat in his car trying to breathe. He could do this. He could face this. He had survived worse things in his life. He got out of his car and walked toward the employee entrance at the back of the building. But somehow the reporters saw him. They came running. Mr. Chen. Can we ask you some questions? How long have you been playing piano? Did you know the video was being recorded? What's your dream as a musician? Are you going to quit your job to pursue music? Cameras were in his face. Bright lights. Microphones thrust toward him. Marcus kept his head down and pushed through the crowd. He didn't answer any questions. He couldn't. His heart was pounding too hard. He made it inside and the door closed behind him, blocking out the noise. He stood in the hallway, breathing hard. Marcus, he looked up. Joe was standing there with a strange expression on his face. Half worried, half excited. They're waiting for you, Joe said. In Hartley's office. Are you ready? No, Marcus said honestly. But I guess it doesn't matter. Hey, Joe put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. Whatever happens in there, you played beautiful music last night. Nobody can take that away from you. Remember that. Marcus nodded. He walked down the hallway to Hartley's office. The door was closed. He could hear voices inside. He raised his hand and knocked. Come in, said a woman's voice. Not Hartley's voice. Victoria Sterling's voice. Marcus opened the door. The office was small and crowded. Hartley sat behind his desk looking red in the face and angry. Victoria Sterling stood next to the desk. She was a tall woman, maybe 60 years old, with silver hair pulled back tight. She wore an expensive suit and had the kind of confidence that came from power. Mr. Chen, she said. Her voice was cool and controlled. Thank you for coming. Please close the door and sit down. Marcus closed the door and sat in the chair across from Hartley's desk. His hands were sweating. His heart felt like it might burst from his chest. I assume you know why you're here, Victoria said. Yes, ma'am, Marcus said quietly. I played the piano last night. I know I'm not supposed to touch it. I know it's against the rules. I'm sorry. Hartley leaned forward. Sorry? You're sorry? Do you have any idea what you've done? You violated a direct order. You touched property worth $500,000. You could have damaged it. You put this entire institution at risk. Raymond, Victoria said sharply. That's enough. Hartley sat back, but he was still glaring at Marcus with hate in his eyes. Victoria looked at Marcus carefully. She studied him like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve. Mr. Chen, she said, how long have you been able to play the piano like that? Marcus didn't expect that question. Since I was a child, ma'am. I studied for 14 years, but I haven't played in 15 years, not until last night. Why did you play last night? After 15 years, why then? Marcus hesitated. Should he tell her the truth? What did it matter now? Marcus sat in the chair, trying to understand what Victoria Sterling had just said. His life was about to change? What did that mean? He was getting fired. That's all he understood. Everything else felt like noise. Hartley stood up from behind his desk. His face was still red. His hands were clenched into fists. With all due respect, Victoria, Hartley said, his voice tight with anger. This man broke the rules. Clear rules that I explained to him on his first day. He was specifically told not to touch the piano. He ignored that order. In any other situation, that would be immediate termination. Victoria turned to look at Hartley. Her expression was cold. Sit down, Raymond. But I said sit down. Hartley sat. But Marcus could see the anger still burning in his eyes. Victoria turned back to Marcus. Mr. Chen, I need to understand something. Why didn't you tell us you could play? When you applied for this job, when you were interviewed, when you were hired, why keep it a secret? Marcus looked down at his hands. They were rough hands now. Working hands, not the hands of a pianist. Or at least that's what he had told himself for 15 years. Because it didn't matter, he said quietly. I needed a job. A real job that paid real money. Playing piano was a dream from when I was young. Dreams don't pay bills. They don't feed children. They don't keep the lights on. I learned that the hard way. Tell me about that, Victoria said. She pulled up a chair and sat down facing Marcus. Like they were having a conversation, not a firing. Tell me what happened 15 years ago. Marcus wasn't sure why she wanted to know. But he was tired of hiding, tired of pretending. The whole world had seen him play now anyway. What was the point of keeping secrets? I was 19, Marcus began. I had just gotten accepted to the New England Conservatory. Full scholarship. It was everything I had worked for my whole life. My grandmother, she raised me and paid for my piano lessons. She was so proud. She said I was going to be famous one day. He paused, remembering. The memory hurt even after all these years. Then my girlfriend got pregnant, Sarah. We were just kids ourselves. We were scared. My scholarship only covered tuition. It didn't cover a baby. It didn't cover medical bills and diapers and all the things a baby needs. So you gave it up, Victoria said softly. The conservatory. Marcus nodded. I got a job at a warehouse. Packing boxes. Sarah and I got married. We tried to make it work. But I was angry all the time. Angry at myself. Angry at the world. Angry that my dreams were gone. It poisoned everything. We got divorced 5 years later. And your daughter? Lily, she's 12 now. She's the best thing in my life. I don't regret her. Not for 1 second. But I regret who I became. A man who gave up on himself. A man who just goes through the motions every day. A man who walks past pianos and pretends he doesn't want to play them. The room was quiet for a moment. Even Hartley had stopped fidgeting. He was listening. And your grandmother? Victoria asked. She died 8 years ago, Marcus said. His voice cracked a little. She never got to see me play professionally. I disappointed her. I wasted everything she gave me. I don't think you disappointed her, Victoria said. I think she would be very proud of what she saw in that video. Marcus looked up at her. There was something in her eyes. Understanding, maybe. Compassion. He hadn't expected that. Hartley cleared his throat. This is all very touching, he said. But it doesn't change the fact that Mr. Chen violated a direct order. I told him multiple times that touching the piano would result in immediate termination. I believe I even said, and I quote, "If he plays the piano, I'll fire him." Those were my exact words. Victoria stood up. She turned to face Hartley. Her expression changed. The warmth she had shown Marcus disappeared. Now she looked like what she was, a woman with power who was not happy. Yes, Raymond, she said. Her voice was ice. I'm aware of what you said. You've repeated that phrase many times over the years. In fact, I have 3 different employees who've told me you enjoyed saying it. You thought it was funny. It was just a joke, Hartley said, but his voice was less certain now. A joke, Victoria repeated. You thought it was funny to mock someone, to make them feel small, to remind them constantly that they were beneath you, that they weren't allowed to aspire to anything more than their station. I was just enforcing the rules. You were being cruel, Victoria cut him off. And you were wrong. Mr. Chen didn't damage the piano. He played it beautifully. He created something that has touched millions of people, something that has brought more attention to this concert hall than any marketing campaign we could have paid for. In 24 hours, that video has made Thornhill Concert Hall famous around the world. Hartley opened his mouth to argue, but Victoria held up her hand. Let me explain something to you, Raymond. I've been the general manager of this institution for 15 years. In that time, I've dealt with many employees. Some are talented, some are hardworking, some are both. Mr. Chen is both. He has worked here for 3 years without a single complaint. His evaluations are perfect. He's never been late, never called in sick, never caused any problems. She moved closer to Hartley's desk. She looked down at him. And in those 3 years, you have bullied him. You've made jokes at his expense. You've treated him like he was worthless. I've heard the stories, Raymond. I've heard how you talk to the security staff and the cleaning crew, how you treat people you think are beneath you. I don't, Hartley started to say. Yes, you do, Victoria said firmly. And I've let it go on too long. That's my fault. I should have stopped it years ago. But I'm stopping it now. Marcus watched this conversation like he was watching a play. None of it felt real. Victoria Sterling was defending him. Victoria Sterling, who had never spoken to him before, was standing up for him against his boss. Hartley stood up. He was shaking now. "What are you saying?" Victoria turned to Marcus. "Mr. Chen, you were right about one thing. Someone should be fired for this situation." Marcus's heart sank. Here it comes. He had known it was coming. But Victoria turned back to Hartley. "Raymond, you're dismissed. Effective immediately." The room went completely silent. Marcus felt like time had stopped. Had he heard that correctly? Hartley's face went from red to white. "What, you can't fire me? I've worked here for 12 years. I'm the head of security." "I haven't done anything wrong." "You've created a hostile work environment," Victoria said calmly. "You've demonstrated poor judgment. You've treated employees with disrespect. And most importantly, you nearly cost this institution an incredible opportunity." "What opportunity?" Hartley shouted. He was losing control now. "He's a security guard who broke the rules. He's a world-class pianist who has created a viral sensation that has put Thornhill Concert Hall on the map," Victoria said. "And because of your bullying and small-mindedness, he felt he had to hide his gift. He felt he couldn't be himself here. That's unacceptable." She walked to the door and opened it. 2 security guards were standing outside. Not Joe. 2 other guards that Marcus didn't know well. "Please escort Mr. Hartley out of the building," Victoria said to them. "He's no longer employed here." Hartley looked like he might explode. "You'll regret this," he said to Victoria. Then he turned to Marcus. "And you think this changes anything? You're still nobody. You're still just a security guard who got lucky for 5 minutes. This won't last." "That's enough," Victoria said sharply. "Leave now or I'll have you removed." Hartley grabbed his jacket and stormed out of the office. The security guards followed him. Marcus could hear him shouting in the hallway, but the words weren't clear. Then the door closed and it was just Marcus and Victoria in the office. Silence filled the room. Marcus couldn't speak. His brain couldn't process what had just happened. Hartley was fired, not him. Hartley. Victoria sat down in Hartley's chair behind the desk. She looked at Marcus with those sharp, intelligent eyes. "Now then," she said. "Let's talk about your future, Mr. Chen." "My future?" Marcus managed to say. "Yes, you see, that video has brought opportunities. Real opportunities. In the last 6 hours, I've received calls from 3 major record labels. They all want to sign you. 2 talent agencies want to represent you. The New York Philharmonic wants you to audition for a solo concert. A documentary filmmaker wants to tell your story." Marcus felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen. Not to him. "I don't understand," he said. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want to help you," Victoria said. "I want Thornhill Concert Hall to be part of your success story. I want to manage your career, with your permission. I have connections in the music world. I can open doors. I can help you become what you were meant to be." "But why?" Marcus asked. "Why would you do that?" Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she said, 25 years ago I was a violinist. Not a great one, but good enough. I dreamed of playing professionally, but life got in the way. Family obligations, financial needs. I ended up in arts administration instead. I don't regret it. I've had a good career, but I understand what it's like to give up music. I understand what it costs." She looked at Marcus with something that might have been sadness in her eyes. "When I watched your video," she continued, "I saw someone playing with their whole soul. Someone who needed music like they needed air." The next morning, Marcus woke up in his apartment and thought maybe he had dreamed it all. The video. The viral fame. Hartley getting fired. Victoria's check. All of it felt too impossible to be real. But then he looked at his phone and saw 247 missed calls and 1,842 text messages. And on his bedside table was the check. $5,000. Real and solid in there. His first call was to Sarah. "Marcus?" She answered on the first ring. "Are you okay? Everyone's trying to reach you. The reporters won't leave me alone." "I'm okay," Marcus said. "Better than okay. I have money for Lily's surgery. Can you take her to the dentist today?" "Today? But her appointment is Friday." "I know. But she's in pain. She shouldn't have to wait. Call them and see if they can take her sooner. Tell them money isn't a problem anymore." There was silence on the other end. Then Sarah said quietly, "Marcus, what's happening?" "I watched the video. I saw what people are saying online. Is this real?" I think so, Marcus said. I don't understand it all yet. But yes, it's real. You always could play beautifully, Sarah said. Her voice was soft now, like it used to be when they were young and in love. I'm sorry I made you give it up. I'm sorry we couldn't make it work. It wasn't your fault, Marcus said. We were kids. We did the best we could. And we got Lily, that's what matters. She's so proud of you, Sarah said. She keeps showing the video to her friends. She tells everyone, that's my dad. I haven't seen her this happy in a long time. Marcus felt his throat get tight. Tell her I love her. Tell her everything's going to be okay now. After he hung up with Sarah, Marcus showered and got dressed, not in his security uniform, in regular clothes, jeans and a shirt. He looked at himself in the mirror. He looked the same, but everything was different. His phone rang. It was Victoria Sterling. Good morning, Mr. Chen, she said in her crisp, professional voice. I hope you slept well. We have a busy day ahead of us. What do you mean? I've scheduled several meetings. First, we're meeting with David Kowalski from Symphony Records at 10 a.m. Then lunch with Jennifer Sato from Elite Artist Management. At 2 p.m., we have a video call with the programming director from the New York Philharmonic. And at 4, you're giving an interview to Channel 7 News. Marcus felt panic rise in his chest. I don't know if I can do all that. I don't know how to talk to these people. You're just a talented pianist who's been discovered, Victoria interrupted, and I'll be with you every step of the way. I'm not going to let anyone take advantage of you. Trust me, Marcus. This is what I do. Okay, Marcus said, even though nothing felt okay. Everything felt too big, too fast, too overwhelming. I'll pick you up in 30 minutes, Victoria said. Wear something nice if you have it. First impressions matter. Marcus didn't have anything nice. His nicest clothes were his security uniform. But he found a pair of dress pants he had worn to his grandmother's funeral, and a button-up shirt that only had one small stain on the collar. He could hide that with his jacket. Exactly 30 minutes later, a black car pulled up outside his apartment building. Victoria was in the back seat. She looked at him when he got in and smiled. We'll get you some new clothes, she said. Add it to the list. The morning was a blur. Marcus sat in fancy offices with expensive furniture and met people who talked about advances in royalties and marketing strategies. David Kowalski from Symphony Records was a young man with thick glasses and too much energy. He kept saying Marcus was authentic and real and exactly what the classical music world needs. The industry has become so elitist, David said, waving his hands around. So disconnected from regular people. But you, Marcus, you're different. You're a working man who happens to be brilliant. That's a story people can connect with. That's marketable. Marcus didn't like being called marketable. It made him feel like a product, not a person. But Victoria squeezed his arm gently and he stayed quiet. Jennifer Sato from Elite Artists was different. She was older, maybe 50, with gray streaks in her black hair. She spoke quietly and asked Marcus questions about what he wanted. What kind of music did he want to play? What were his goals? What mattered to him? I just want to play, Marcus said honestly. I don't know about goals or careers or any of that. I just know that when I'm playing, I feel like myself. Like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, Jennifer smiled. That's the right answer, she said. Never lose that feeling. The business side will try to change you. Don't let it. The video call with the New York Philharmonic was intimidating. The programming director was a serious man named Robert Chen. No relation, he said with a small smile. He told Marcus they wanted him to audition for a solo concert in their Undiscovered Talents series. We feature musicians who haven't had traditional paths to success, Robert explained. Your story fits perfectly. A security guard with extraordinary talent. The audience will love it. Marcus wanted to say he wasn't a security guard anymore, but he didn't know what he was now. So he just nodded. The interview with Channel 7 News was the hardest part. The reporter, Jennifer Park, asked him about his past, about giving up the conservatory, about his marriage and divorce, about working nights and barely making ends meet. Marcus tried to be honest without falling apart. He talked about his grandmother and his daughter. He talked about how music had always been a part of him, even when he couldn't play. He talked about that night at the piano and how it felt like coming home after being lost for 15 years. What do you want people to know about you? Jennifer Park asked at the end. Marcus thought for a moment. I want them to know that it's never too late, he said. I gave up on my dreams because I thought I had to. I thought being responsible meant killing the parts of yourself that make you happy. But maybe that's wrong. Maybe you can be responsible and still be yourself. Maybe it's never too late to try again. When the interview was over, Victoria drove Marcus back to his apartment. She had been quiet during the ride, just letting him process everything. "You did well today," she said when they pulled up outside his building. "Better than I expected for your first time." "I don't know what I'm doing," Marcus admitted. "I feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not." "You're not pretending," Victoria said firmly. "You're becoming who you really are. There's a difference. The man who played that piano is the real you. The security guard was the pretend version." Marcus wasn't sure he believed that, but he was too tired to argue. "Get some rest," Victoria said. "Tomorrow we start recording. Symphony Records wants to capture you while you're still raw. Their word, not mine." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep again. He kept thinking about everything that had happened. 2 days ago, he was nobody, an invisible security guard with a secret past. Now he was on the news. Record labels wanted him. The New York Philharmonic wanted him to audition. His phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Sarah must have helped her send it. "Dad, I saw you on TV. My tooth is better now. The dentist fixed it today. It doesn't hurt anymore. Thank you. You're the best dad ever. I love you." Marcus read the message 5 times. Then he saved it. He would keep it forever. Because in that moment, none of the fame mattered. None of the opportunities mattered. What mattered was that his daughter wasn't in pain anymore. What mattered was that he had been able to help her when she needed him. He fell asleep with his phone in his hand and dreamed of music. The next few weeks passed in a strange blur. Marcus recorded an album. He practiced every day on the piano at Thornhill Concert Hall. Victoria arranged everything. She became his manager officially, though she still ran the concert hall too. She said Marcus was her special project. The video kept spreading. 10 million views. 20 million. 50 million. People couldn't stop watching it. Couldn't stop talking about it. The story of the security guard who became a pianist was everywhere. Marcus gave more interviews. He met more important people. He signed contracts that Victoria explained carefully to him. She made sure he understood everything. Made sure nobody was cheating him. "You're vulnerable right now," she told him. "New to this world. There are people who will try to take advantage. I won't let that happen." Marcus started making money. Real money. More money than he had ever seen. The advance from his record deal. Payment for interviews. Appearance fees. It was overwhelming. He paid off all his debts. He sent Sarah extra money for Lily. He bought a new car, nothing fancy, just something that worked. He moved to a better apartment. Still small, but the ceiling didn't have water stains. He called his sister in California. They hadn't talked in 2 years. She cried when she heard his voice. She said she had seen the video. She said their grandmother would be so proud. But with all the success came pressure. Pressure to be perfect. Pressure to live up to the expectations. People had seen one video of him playing from his heart. Now they wanted more. They wanted him to do it again and again, to perform on command, to be brilliant every time. The recording sessions were hard. In the studio, Marcus felt stiff and nervous. The engineer kept asking him to play pieces over and over. "One more take," he would say. "Let's try that again." Marcus missed playing in the empty concert hall at midnight when nobody was watching, when it was just him and the piano and the music. Now there were always people around, always someone listening and judging and expecting. One night, 3 weeks after the video went viral, Marcus sat at the piano in the concert hall. It was 2 a.m. He had come here after everyone left. He needed to feel that feeling again. The feeling from that first night. He played for an hour, but it felt different. He was thinking too much, worrying too much about being good enough, about living up to what people expected. The music didn't flow the way it had that first night. He stopped playing and put his head in his hands. What if that first night was just luck? What if he couldn't do it again? What if he let everyone down? "You're thinking too much." Marcus looked up. Victoria was standing at the back of the auditorium. He hadn't heard her come in. "I didn't know you were here," he said. "I saw your car in the parking lot," she said, walking down the aisle. "I figured you might need someone to talk to." She sat in the front row, the same seat Marcus had sat in that first night. "What's wrong?" she asked gently. I don't know if I can do this, Marcus admitted. Everyone expects so much. What if I'm not good enough? What if that video was just a fluke and I'm really just a mediocre pianist who got lucky? Do you know why that video became so popular? Victoria asked. Marcus shook his head. It wasn't because you played perfectly, she said. Professional pianists play perfectly all the time. The world is full of technically perfect musicians. That video became popular because people saw your soul. They saw you playing like your life depended on it. Like the music was the only thing keeping you alive. She stood up and walked to the stage. She looked at him with those sharp, kind eyes. You can't fake that, she said. You can't manufacture it. It was real. And that's what people connected with. That's what they want to see again. Not perfection, truth. But what if I can't do it again? Marcus asked. Then you can't, Victoria said simply. And that's okay too. This whole thing might not work out. The fame might disappear. The opportunities might dry up. You might end up right back where you started. Marcus felt his heart sink. That's not very encouraging. Let me finish, Victoria said with a small smile. Even if all of that happens, you still had this moment. You still played that piano. You still remembered who you are. Nobody can take that from you. Not the record labels, not the critics, not anyone. You're a pianist, Marcus. That's who you've always been. With or without the fame. With or without the success. You're a pianist. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. Something that had been tight and scared. She was right. He was a pianist. That was the truth. Everything else was just noise. Thank you, he said. Now stop thinking and just play, Victoria said. She sat back down in her seat. Play for me. Play like nobody's listening. Play like you did that first night. Marcus turned back to the piano. He closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. And then he played. He didn't think about record deals or interviews or expectations. He didn't think about being good enough or letting people down. He just played. He let the music come from somewhere deep inside him. Somewhere honest and real, and it was beautiful. When he finished, Victoria was crying. She wiped her eyes and smiled at him. That's it, she said. That's what they want to see. Remember that feeling. Hold on to it. Because that's your gift, Marcus. Not technical perfection, truth. Marcus nodded. He understood now. The pressure wasn't the enemy. The expectations weren't the enemy. Fear was the enemy. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of failing. Fear of losing this second chance. But if he could let go of the fear and just play from his heart, then maybe, just maybe, he could do this. He could be a pianist. Not just a viral sensation or a feel-good story. A real pianist. For the first time since the video went viral, Marcus felt hope. Real hope. Not the desperate hope of a drowning man, but the quiet hope of someone who had found their way home. 3 months had passed since that night when Marcus played the piano in secret. 3 months that felt like 3 years. So much had changed. So much had happened. Sometimes Marcus had to pinch himself to believe it was real. Today was the biggest day yet. His debut concert at Thornhill Concert Hall. The same stage where he had played that first time. The same piano. But everything else was different. Marcus stood backstage looking at himself in the mirror. He wore a black suit that Victoria had bought for him. His hair was cut professionally for the first time in his life. He looked like a real pianist. A professional musician. Not a security guard anymore. But inside, he still felt like that scared 42-year-old man who couldn't pay his bills. Inside, he still felt like an imposter. 5 minutes, Mr. Chen, a stagehand said, poking his head into the dressing room. Marcus nodded. His hands were shaking. He looked at them and tried to make them stop, but they wouldn't. What if he messed up? What if he forgot the music? What if people were disappointed? There was a knock on the door. Come in, Marcus said. Victoria entered, looking elegant in a dark blue dress. Behind her was Lily, his daughter. She wore a new dress that Marcus had bought her. Her hair was done up nice. She looked so grown up. So beautiful, Dad. Lily ran to him and hugged him tight. Marcus held her close, feeling tears come to his eyes. I'm so nervous, he whispered to her. Don't be, Lily said, looking up at him with her bright eyes. You're amazing. Everyone's going to love you. I already know because I love you. Marcus laughed and wiped his eyes. When did you get so wise? I learned it from my dad, Lily said with a grin. Sarah was there too, standing in the doorway. She smiled at Marcus. Not the angry smile from when they were married. A genuine smile. A proud smile. "You look good," she said. "Really good?" "I'm happy for you, Marcus. You deserve this." "Thank you," Marcus said. "Thank you for bringing Lily. It means everything to have her here." 2 minutes, Mr. Chen," the stagehand called. Victoria put her hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Are you ready?" Marcus took a deep breath. Was he ready? He thought about the last 3 months. The recording sessions, the interviews, the practice, the fear, the doubt, the moments when he wanted to give up and go back to being invisible. But he also thought about that first night. The feeling of freedom, the feeling of being himself, the music pouring out of him like it had been trapped inside for 15 years. "I'm ready," he said. Lily hugged him one more time. "Break a leg, Dad, that's what you're supposed to say, right?" Marcus laughed. "That's right, sweetheart." Victoria led Lily and Sarah out to their seats in the front row. Marcus was alone in the dressing room. He looked at himself one more time in the mirror. "You can do this," he said to his reflection. "You're a pianist. This is what you were meant to do." He walked out of the dressing room and down the hallway. He could hear voices on the other side of the curtain. The audience. They were talking and laughing, waiting for the concert to start. He peeked through a small gap in the curtain and saw the auditorium. It was completely full. Every single seat, 1,200 people. They had sold out in 47 minutes when tickets went on sale. 47 minutes. People actually wanted to hear him play. Marcus saw Lily in the front row. She was pointing at the stage and talking excitedly to Sarah. Victoria sat next to them, looking calm and composed. In the row behind them was Joe, his old co-worker from the security job. Joe waved when he saw Marcus peeking through the curtain. Marcus waved back and felt his heart warm. There were other people he recognized too. Maria, the cleaning woman who had recorded the video. She had apologized to Marcus 100 times for breaking her promise not to show anyone. But Marcus had forgiven her. If she hadn't posted that video, none of this would have happened. David Kowalski from Symphony Records was there. Jennifer Sado from Elite Artists, reporters, music critics, famous musicians who had come to see what all the fuss was about. And in the back row, sitting alone, was an elderly Asian woman who looked so much like his grandmother that Marcus's breath caught. But it wasn't her. It couldn't be. His grandmother was gone. Still, he liked to imagine she was there, watching from somewhere. Proud of him. The lights in the auditorium dimmed. The audience got quiet. This was it. This was the moment. Marcus walked onto the stage. The spotlight was bright in his eyes. He couldn't see the audience anymore, just shadows. But he could feel them. 1,200 people all focused on him, all waiting to hear what he would do. He walked to the piano and sat down on the bench. He adjusted it slightly, even though it was already at the perfect height. He was stalling. He was scared. Then he looked down at his hands. These hands that had checked locks and opened doors for 3 years. These hands that had once been called gifted. These hands that his grandmother had said were meant for music. He placed his fingers on the keys. The cool, smooth surface felt like home. He closed his eyes and took one more deep breath, and then he began to play. He started with Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, the same piece he had played that first night. His fingers moved across the keys and the notes filled the auditorium. Clear and pure and beautiful. At first, Marcus was aware of the audience. He could feel them listening. But slowly, as the music flowed through him, they disappeared. The auditorium disappeared. Everything disappeared except the piano and the music. He played pieces he had learned as a child. Pieces he had performed in competitions. Pieces that told the story of his life. Bach and Beethoven and Rachmaninoff. Each one perfect in its own way. Each one a chapter in his journey. But the most powerful moment came when Marcus did something unplanned. Something not on the program. He started to improvise. He made up music from his own heart. Music about his grandmother and the love she had given him. Music about Sarah and Lily and the family he had tried to build. Music about long nights walking empty hallways. Music about dreams that die and dreams that come back to life. The music was sad and hopeful at the same time. It was lonely but also full of love. It was everything Marcus had felt for the last 15 years, put into sound instead of words. People in the audience started to cry. Marcus couldn't see them with his eyes closed, but he could feel it. He could feel the connection between his heart and theirs. The music was doing what music does best. It was making people feel. It was reminding them they weren't alone. The improvisation ended softly, gently, like falling asleep. The last note faded into silence. For a moment, the auditorium was completely quiet. Marcus kept his eyes closed, his hands still on the keys. He didn't want the moment to end. He wanted to stay in this perfect space forever. Then the applause started. It began as a few claps, then more, until it was like thunder. The whole audience was on their feet. 1,200 people standing and clapping and cheering. Marcus opened his eyes. He stood up and turned to face the audience. The spotlight was so bright he could only see the first few rows. But he saw Lily. His daughter was standing on her chair, clapping so hard her hands must have hurt, tears streaming down her face. Sarah was clapping too, smiling through her own tears. Victoria looked proud and dignified, but even she was wiping her eyes. Joe was whistling through his fingers. Maria was holding her phone up, recording again, not even trying to hide it this time. The music critics who had come to judge were on their feet. Everyone was standing. Everyone was clapping. Marcus felt tears roll down his cheeks. He didn't try to hide them. He just stood there and let himself feel it. All of it. The joy and the relief and the gratitude and the disbelief that this was really happening. He took a bow. The applause got louder. He bowed again. People started throwing flowers onto the stage. Roses and lilies and orchids. Beautiful flowers for a beautiful performance. The stage manager came out and whispered to Marcus. "They want an encore. Will you play one more?" Marcus nodded. He sat back down at the piano. The audience settled into their seats, still buzzing with energy. What should he play? He had already played everything on the program. What could possibly follow what he had just done? Then he knew. He knew exactly what to play. He started to play a simple melody. A children's song. The first song his grandmother had ever taught him when he was 5 years old. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. But he played it differently. He played it with the skill of a master pianist. He added harmonies and variations. He turned a simple children's song into something profound and beautiful. It was Marcus saying thank you. Thank you to his grandmother for seeing something in him when he was just a little boy. Thank you for the lessons and the love and the belief that he could be something special. Thank you for giving him this gift, even though it took him 15 years to accept it. When the song ended, the audience was crying again. Everyone understood what he was saying without words. Everyone felt the love and the gratitude in the music. The applause this time was different. It was softer, more emotional. People were clapping but also wiping their eyes. It wasn't just appreciation for a good performance. It was something deeper. It was recognition of something true and honest and real. Marcus stood and bowed one final time. Then he walked off the stage. Behind the curtain, he collapsed into a chair, exhausted and exhilarated. He had done it. He had really done it. Victoria came backstage with Lily. His daughter ran to him and jumped into his arms. "You were amazing," she said. "The best. Better than anyone." Marcus held her tight and laughed. "I don't know about that." "I do," Lily said firmly. "You're the best pianist in the whole world." Victoria smiled. "The critics will have their reviews in the morning. But I can tell you right now, Marcus, you've just made history. That was one of the most moving performances I've seen in 30 years in this business." "Thank you," Marcus said. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for giving me this chance." "You gave yourself this chance," Victoria said. "The moment you sat down at that piano 3 months ago and decided to play, that was all you." Later that night, after all the reporters had left and all the congratulations had been said, Marcus drove home to his new apartment. It was late. He was exhausted, but he felt more alive than he ever had. He made himself a cup of tea and sat by the window looking out at the city. Somewhere out there were 1,200 people who had heard him play tonight. Maybe they were telling their friends about it. Maybe they were listening to the recordings that would be shared online. Maybe some of them would remember this night for the rest of their lives. And somewhere out there were millions of people who had watched the original video. People who had been touched by his music. People who had felt less alone because of what he had shared. Marcus thought about the security guard he had been just 3 months ago. Walking empty hallways at night. Checking locks. Feeling invisible. Feeling like his life was over before it had really begun. That man seemed like a stranger now. Like someone from another lifetime. But Marcus also knew he couldn't forget that man. That man was part of his story. The struggle and the sacrifice and the hard years when he thought his dreams were dead. All of that had made this moment possible. All of that had given him something real to say through his music. He thought about what Victoria had told him that night a few weeks ago. About how the video became popular not because he played perfectly, but because he played truthfully, because people saw his soul. Marcus understood now what she meant. Success wasn't about being the best or the most talented. It was about being honest, about being yourself, about taking the broken pieces of your life and making something beautiful from them. His phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Good night, Dad, I love you. You made me proud tonight." Marcus smiled and texted back, "I love you too, sweetheart. You're the reason I keep going." He sat there for a while longer, drinking his tea and watching the city lights. He thought about tomorrow. There would be more concerts, more opportunities, more challenges. The road ahead wasn't easy. He knew that. Success brought its own pressures and problems. But for tonight, he was just going to be grateful. Grateful for second chances. Grateful for the gift his grandmother had given him. Grateful for a daughter who believed in him. Grateful for a piano and the courage to play it. Marcus Chen had been a security guard who secretly knew how to play piano. Then he became a viral sensation, then a recording artist, and tonight he had become what he was always meant to be, a pianist, a real pianist, not because of fame or money or success, but because he had found the courage to be himself, to stop hiding, to let the world see who he really was, and in the end that was the greatest gift of all, not the applause or the opportunities or the second chance at his dreams, but the freedom to finally, after 42 years, be exactly who he was meant to be. Marcus finished his tea and looked at his hands. They weren't shaking anymore. They were steady and strong, ready for whatever came next. He smiled to himself and whispered into the quiet apartment, "Thank you, Grandma. We did it. We really did it." Somewhere, he liked to think, she smiled back and said, "I always knew you would, my dear boy. I always knew." And for Marcus Chen, that was the perfect ending to a very long journey home.